So please put your hands together for Stolen from God.
John Hawkins was an intrepid naval commander from Tavistock in Devon, and he was determined to break into the highly lucrative slave trade controlled by the Spanish and Portuguese. And in 1562, with a crew of 400 men, he set sail from Plymouth to Sierra Leone in West Africa, which, owing to its location and instability caused by invasion and internal warfare, became an ideal trading point for the slave dealers. Hawkins was to witness firsthand the huge rewards from the exchange of captured Africans that he could bring when he acquired, some say stole, upwards of 300, and sold them to the Spaniards in the Americas for a fortune's worth of pearls, hides, sugar, and ginger. And in doing so, he became rich and helped to establish the transatlantic slave trade, referred to by many historians as the triangular, the three-way trade. Queen Elizabeth I, who had publicly declared the kidnapping of Africans detestable, called down the vengeance of heaven on the undertakers, but awarded Hawkins his very own coat of arms, which included a chained and bound black African slave. Her generosity further extended to providing him with a ship for the next voyage called the Jesus of Lubeck. Hawkins also brought back the practice of tobacco smoking to England in 1565, although it didn't really catch on until years after. Lung cancer and slavery, a powerful and poisonous legacy. He conducted 3 major slave voyages between 1562 and 1569, along with his second cousin, later recognized as a great English naval hero, Sir Francis Drake.
On the good ship Jesus we left shore from Plymouth 1564. John Hawkins was our captain then, and 80 Christian Devon men. I'm proud to work an honest day for an honest man and an honest pay. On deck we're sailors free, endorsed by God and loyalty. Bless this day, Lord, lead the way, Lord, let us pray. This ship of 700 tons, its crew cut down by 3 to 1. Our voyage set for the English throne, we sailed to Sierra Leone. Our course set for the Spanish Main, our sea dog captain's plan explained, to replace each missing Englishman with twice as many Africans. Bless this day, Lord, let us pray, Lord, let us pray. We are the Queen's own sailors on the Jesus of Lubeck. We fly the flag of England and we keep a holy deck. God help the Spanish privateer should he ever sail our way. Let us pray, boys, let us pray, us pray. And so I watched good Christian men turn to their God, then turn again, as the captain's mission held them sway, bound by duty, bound by pay. This is the Jesus of Lebed, and an honest man each man expects to bring the native by your sword, or some deceit, or holy word. Bless his stay, Lord. Lead the way, Lord. Let us pray. We are the Queen's Own sailors on the Jesus of Lebec. We fly the flag of England and we keep a holy debt. God help the Spanish privateer should he ever sail our way. Let us pray, boys. Let us pray. Let us pray, boys. Let us pray.
When Drake wasn't circling the continents over the Spanish and Portuguese in the highly lucrative sugar and slave trades, and in 1588 he sealed his place in posterity and our school books among the great and glorious Englishmen by leading the defeat of the Spanish Armada. Ships from ports including Topsham, Plymouth, Lyme Regis, Bideford, Bridgewater, and of course Bristol, laden with goods produced or supplied by so many West Country sheep farmers, cloth makers, shoemakers and gunsmiths, were the same ships of sorrow that brought separation and despair to places in Africa thousands of miles away by trading in their men, women and children. All these good and virtuous Christian men needed some way to justify the wealth they were gaining by the enslavement and degradation of their fellow man. And in their minds, they needed to look no further than the Bible. Admirals in their private quarters, politicians in their lofty halls, landowners in their colonial mansions, sailors, adventurers, and privateers on raging seas in howling storms, they all called on the same master and commander, God. Frederick Douglass, a former enslaved African-American turned abolitionist, writer, and orator, who visited Bridgewater in the mid-19th century on a lecture tour, had this to say of the white churches. Between the Christianity of this land and the Christianity of Christ, I recognize the widest possible difference, so wide that to receive the one as good, pure, and holy is of necessity to reject the other as bad, corrupt, and wicked. I love the pure and peaceable, impartial Christianity of Christ. I therefore hate the corrupt, slave-owning, woman-whipping, cradle-plucking, partial, and hypocritical Christianity of this land.
To own and control another man requires unusual skill. To be prepared to go beyond, to be prepared to kill, to brutalize, dehumanize, to rule with fear and pain, to own and control another man. You must know the way of Cain, the way of Cain, the way of Cain. To own and control another man, you must know the way of Cain. To work a man like John Henry takes a heart as hard as steel. But the fear of the rod and the fear of God, you must turn him around on your wheel. No Christian man should own a man, but the laws of this country are plain. You can own them abroad by the gun and the sword if you know the way of Cain. The way of Cain, the way of Cain. You can own them abroad by the gun and the sword if you know the way of Cain. You can chain a man like an animal, but you can't put the iron on his soul. With the fear of the rod and the fear of God, you can bring him around to your goal. To the eyes of you good Christian women and men, such brutal extremes must seem strange. With your fortunes at stake for his spirit to break, you must know the way of Cain. The way of Cain, the way of Cain. With your fortunes at stake for his spirit to break, you must know the way of Cain. The way of Cain, the way of Cain. With your fortunes at stake for his spirit to break, you must know the way of Cain. The way of Cain, the way of Cain. With your fortunes at stake for his spirit to break, you must know the way of Cain. The way of Cain, the way of Cain. With your fortunes at stake for his spirit to break, you must know the way of Cain.
By the second half of the 17th century, Enslaving and trading African people was fundamental to the British economy. In Bristol, practically everyone from the lowest market trader and shopkeeper had a share of the business. And forced labour at this time wasn't exclusive to black Africans. The demand for cheap labour from the colonies was high, and unscrupulous British merchants in league with the press gangs would capture the destitute and the homeless, prisoners, gypsies and children, and trade them as indentured servants, and the law supported this action. Any who managed to survive could expect an average of 4 years of hard labour, wretched conditions and starvation rations, after which they would be freed and they were meant to be given land of their own. Records say as many as 1 million white people were either kidnapped, deported or transported as indentured servants from Britain to work in the colonies, while white slave traders were trawling the oceans for Africans to steal or take. The Barbary pirates or corsairs of North Africa were also looking for captives in the Mediterranean and along the English and Irish coasts. Farming men and women were taken from the fields and fishermen plucked from their boats in southwest England and taken to North Africa. At one time, there were believed to be as many as 80 Barbary men of war cruising the Devon and Cornwall coastline. Their status was very different from enslaved Africans. Some were even brought back home when ransom money raised in Britain was paid for their freedom to return home. The difference with the African trade was that it was racial and a commercial business sanctioned by law and royal decree, and it allowed Europeans to continue to exploit African labour without feeling the guilt of human misery weighing on their consciences. Slave codes passed in English colonies in mainland America and in the Caribbean from the 1660s developed laws which distinguished between white people whose labour was enforced and enslaved Africans who were chattels, owned outright by their masters. Slavery was made hereditary, so that children born to slave mothers were born enslaved, and unless a legal intervention such as freedom being granted to an individual remained so for the rest of their lives.
We sailed out of old Topsham town to the western coast of France. We loaded salt at Tilderay, we led the Turks a dance. They cut us off in Biscay Bay, and 90 souls they stowed away in chains to fear and rue the day the Norton took a chance. So Devon men from Barnstable and men from Bristol town, so Dartmouth men and Taunton men sailed up the Plymouth Sound. So farming men from Hatherleigh forsake the land and go to sea, enslaved by chains and poverty. In Sallyport they're bound. 300 years they took our men away to Barbary shore to see England no more. They sold us off in Algiers-town, young Lightfoot, Brown and me. For the hardest labour we were bound, and bread would be our fee. We who stole the African and sold to the American, we're tasting our own medicine of poison slavery. 300 years they took our men away to Barbary shore to see England no more. Back home among the fishing boys, there's those who'll sail no more, for fear the Barbary corsairs should pluck them from the shore. From Somerset the farming man, and from his boat the Cornishman, and Devon babies from the Strand, to even up the score. 300 years they took our men away to Barbary shore to see England no
The phrase the triangular trade was coined by historians to describe 3 stages involved in the transatlantic slave trade. The first passage, ships sailed south from English ports carrying cloth, wool, weapons and ironware to the West African coast, where they traded for Africans who were then transported west in the middle passage. Traumatized men, women and children were trafficked across the Atlantic to the Caribbean and the southern states of Americas, there to be sold and traded for sugar or molasses, tobacco, rum, coffee, cotton, which was then carried east in the third passage, back across the Atlantic to Britain. In 1672, the Royal African Company, RAC, was established by royal charter by King Charles II to trade in slaves, who were branded by hot irons with the company's initials on expeditions originating from London ports. From 1698, the RAC and the ports of London had lost their monopoly when Parliament passed the Trade with Africa Bill, and the trafficking of Africans was declared a free-for-all. Bristol, along with the other ports like Liverpool and Bridgewater, were officially licensed to trade. There was very little opposition. Admittedly, the true horrors were still largely unknown or unseen to most people, although the wealth and prosperity was not. The Quakers were one of the few organizations to resist, and later would be instrumental in the fight for abolition, although not all individual Quakers refused to be involved in slavery. By the late 1600s in Bristol, there were 4 major sugar refining businesses, and one of the most influential merchants, a partner in the St. Peter's Sugar House, and an official in the Royal African Company, was Sir Edward Colston.
Good morning, Mr. Colston. I see your ships come in. Will you pay $100 for my torn and ragged skin? 'Cause the master needs his coffee, and the master needs his rum, and the missus needs her sugar to make her sugar plum. Good morning, Mr. Colston. When will your kingdom come? They tell me, Mr. Colston, you're a God-fearing man. Did the Lord give you permission to take me from my land? 'Cause we're equal in construction. Did he render you the best? Do you hold a sacred license to burn letters in my chest? Good morning, Mr. Colston. When will your soul be blessed? Am I not a brother and a man, with the right to breathe the Bristol air and walk this pleasant land? Am I not a brother and a man? Good morning, Mr. Colston. Bless your generosity. It's thanks to you there's hospitals and poor folk property. It's thanks to you 100,000 souls were sold as slaves, and a quarter died in transit, and the ocean was their graves. Good morning, Mr. Colston. beneath your arm the manifest, your Bible in your hand, your sugar from Barbados, your coffee from Brazil. For each white child you educate, another black child kill. Good morning, Mr. Colston, when will your cup be filled? Am I not a sister on this earth? And black and white in child degrees on every mother's word. Am I not a sister on this earth? Good morning, Mr. Colston. Your philanthropy is plain. There's hardly hall or street or school that doesn't bear your name. It's a golden chain that binds you to a poison legacy. No statue or memorial can hide your history. Good morning, Mr. Colston. When will your son be free? Am I not a brother and man, with the right to breathe the blissful air and walk this pleasant land? Am I not a brother and man? Good morning, Mr. Colston. I see your ships coming.
Edward Colston was born into a Church of England family in Bristol. By 1672, he had become a successful merchant with strong links to the Spanish slave and sugar trades. On his death, he left the modern equivalent of £13.5 million, at least 6 million of that to charities and ongoing support to the poor and disadvantaged. He was a major official in the Royal African Company for 11 years, and as Tory MP for Bristol, he defended the city's rights to trade in enslaved Africans in Parliament. Records show that in the legal slaving period from 1698 to 1807, almost 500,000 Africans were transported by Bristol expeditions. It's estimated that Colston was directly involved in the enslavement of at least 80,000 souls, including 12,000 children who were forcibly kidnapped in their homeland, force-marched to the coast, and then transported in horrifically inhumane conditions, sometimes up to 6-month voyages crossing the Atlantic. They were chained, beaten, starved, raped, denied any dignity or human rights, separated from their loved ones, then sold into a life of brutally hard work and servitude. Given these prospects, it could be said that those 20,000 who died in transit were the lucky ones. For many years, there's been an objection to the very one-sided depiction of Colston as the Bristol philanthropist, which left out the story of where his wealth came from. Perhaps an earlier response from the council may have prevented the turn of events in June 2020, when his statue was pulled down, defaced and pushed into the harbour by Black Lives Matter activists. Four of them were later found not guilty of criminal damage.
God made these hands to hold and caress. He made these hands to worship and bless. He made these hands to hold my own child. God made these hands to be mine. God made these hands to pray and to praise. He made these hands to touch my mother's face. He made these hands to hold on to you. God made these hands to be true. All the believers that you have betrayed, your debt to humanity must be repaid. This is your history written in blood. Everything stolen from God. God made these hands to cook and to sew. He made these hands to plow and to grow, to work for my family all the day long. God made these hands to be strong. God made these hands to be gentle and kind, to speak for the deaf and a guide to the blind, to reach for the sky, to his heaven above. God made these hands for love. These are the words should be carved on your grave. How the price of your fortune was 3 million slaves. This is your legacy written in blood. Everything stolen from God. You made these hands to blister and bleed, to slave for the white man and bend to his greed, to cut coffee for gentlemen, cane for their wives, at the cost of my family's life. All the believers that you was 3,000,000 slaves. This is your history, written in blood. Everything stolen from God. Everything stolen from God.
There are several surviving written accounts by the enslaved. One of the most eloquent is the interesting narrative of the life of Olaudah Equiano, or Gustavus Vassa, the African, written by himself in 1789. Equiano brought his freedom from his Quaker owner at the age of 20 for today's equivalent of £5,500. He travelled extensively, including as a powder boy in the British Navy, finally settling in London. He married an English woman, became a leading activist in the abolition movement, for which his written account became a powerful weapon. He died in 1797, aged 52, 10 years before the slave trade ended, and is buried at Whitefield's Tabernacle in London. The next song is written from Equiano's account of his capture and transportation.
The last time I knew kindness, I was lying in my bed, with my mother's arms around me and her soft voice in my head. Outside the cattle murmured and the wind blew through the palms. The last time I knew kindness, I was in my mother's arms. My father always told me, boy, don't go beyond the wood. There are bad men and they're waiting, and they'll take you if they could. You might recognize their skin, and you might recognize their tongue, but they mean to steal your freedom, and they mean to sell you on. I'd never seen a white man, I'd never seen the sea. A good man can't conceive the evil things they've done to me. They stripped me and they whipped me, and they threw me in the hole, where your pain means you're alive and your salvation to be sold. Stole away, stole away, stole away. Stole away, stole away, stole away. They packed us in so tightly in the darkness and outer. The crying of my sisters, brothers dying from the hurt. The ship pulled into Bridgetown, where they brought us up on deck, chained together by our hands and feet and shackled by the neck. We feared we might be eaten by these wicked, ugly men, as they pinched our skin and studied us again. They would brutalize and beat They threw us back below the deck, our terror was so great. They called upon the elders to assure us of our fate. Not even your own death is yours, they'll save you from yourself. From this day on, your life is just to supplement their wealth. They sold us off in parcels, disregarding family ties. They stole brothers from their brothers, they stole husbands from their wives. They stole mothers from their children, love and friendship ripped apart. They broke wills and they broke bodies, they broke minds and they broke hearts.
Stole away, stole away, stole away. Stole away, stole away, stole away.
In 1772, Lord Mansfield officiated at the trial of James Somerset, a case which would finally define legally and morally the wrongful aspects of the capture, trading, and ownership of slaves. Mansfield himself had an adopted daughter of mixed heritage called Belle. 2 years earlier, Charles Stewart, a Scottish customs officer and merchant, brought James Somerset in America and took him to London to be his servant. Stewart had James baptized in the presence of 3 English godparents, but possibly because baptism was equated with manumission or freedom from slavery, once baptized, Somerset refused to serve Stewart and he escaped. He was recaptured and forced on a ship to be transported and to resume life as a slave in Jamaica. His godparents, however, brought the case to the attention of Granville Sharp, one of the country's leading abolitionists. Sharp took the case to Lord Mansfield, who ruled that laws in the colonies did not apply to England, where no legislation had ever been passed to legalize slavery. By English law, you could own a man abroad, but to own a man in England was a crime. William Bull Davy, a lawyer from Exeter, was employed as an advocate for Somerset, and he argued that the air of England is so pure that it cannot be breathed by a slave. Therefore, once an enslaved person sets foot on English soil, they became free. Mansfield found in favour of Somerset, and he was released. The case didn't end slavery, but it added potent fuel to the abolitionist movement, and Bridgewater in Somerset prevented the first petition to Parliament for the abolition of the slave trade. In the 1870s, Anti-Slavery International, the first civil rights movement, an organisation, was formed, and new regulations were introduced to improve conditions and restrict numbers allowed on slave ships.
And I am a free man, taken from my family and taken from my land, taken from the ones I love, but earth was shown to me to live just like an animal, like stolen property. My name, it is James Somerset, and I am a free man. Sweet Lord, boys, let it go, boys. Sweet Lord, boys, let it go. Sweet Lord, let it go, boys. Sweet Lord, boys, let it go. Sweet Lord, boys, let it go. Sweet Lord, boys, let it go. Sweet Lord, boys, let it go, boys. Sweet Lord, boys, let it go.
In 1772 in Virginia, there was a different smoke rising as the small fires of the American Revolution crackled into life, and the first act of mass emancipation took place when the colonial British Army offered freedom to any black slaves who would fight with them against American independence. Approximately 100,000 enslaved people escaped, drawn by the promise of freedom, and about 20,000 of them joined the British Army, many of them returning to England with their regiments once the war was over. After the Anglo-American War of 1812, over 1,000 African-American military prisoners were held in Dartmoor Jail, where they formed their own community in Cell Block 4. By all accounts, they were well organized, with prayer services, boxing and fitness programs, an elected leader also called Richard Craftus, known by his fellow prisoners as King Dick. Really, Reg? Really? The total black population of Britain in the second half of the 18th century had been thought to be about 20,000, the majority being brought here by traders as domestic servants.
My father always told me, son, be smart. Buy yourself an African to pull that heavy car. My father always said, son, use your brain. Buy yourself an African to pull that sugar cane. My father was a Bristol man by trade. In sugar and molasses there were fortunes to be made. To gain a place in high society, a man must grow his interest in this golden industry. We were headed for the coast of Senegal. Coffee, cloth and gunpowder, ruddy beads and wool. Then southward to the port of Calabar, where the smell of death hangs heavy and tobacco smoke and tar. And I found myself in dagger on his waist, and on his face the blackest hair. The captain said the devil's in that man, but God's with us and on our side, and we. If Satan owns the cursed barbarian, and God's with us, then who stands with the wretched African? Abandoned by all saints and gods he seemed, and cast into some nightmare, some forsaken spirit dream. And I bought myself an African queen. And so the day went on, and by the end I'd bought 200 women folk, and girls and boys and men. The captain said, these bodies that you see, think on them as chattels, like some cheap commodity. And I bought another Africans 3. Their purpose is to labor for your need, sanctioned by His Holiness, by royalty decree. And it's the right of each good Englishman to keep by your protection and to govern by your hand. So I bought myself an African. Yes, I bought myself an African.
Bridgewater in Somerset was at one time an even greater trading port than Bristol, with its wealth hugely boosted by trading in Africans. But in 1785, the mayor, William Tuckett, and his councillors decided that a petition against slavery should be written and presented to Parliament. It was the earliest such protest by any borough against the African trade. After its presentation to Parliament, the petition was ordered to be lain on the table, basically meaning it would be politely ignored. Although the petition failed in one respect, it succeeded in another. It proved to be the first of many whose combined effect created a groundswell of anti-slavery feeling and support for the great abolitionists such as William Wilberforce, Thomas Clarkson, and Oloda Equiano.
my petition, a deplorable condition. There's a man with a paper going round. There's a Bridgewater man taking aim, trying to reach out to his brothers held in chains, and to plead there's no excuse not to turn those brothers loose. There's a man going round taking names. Oh, brother. Oh, brother. Oh, brother. There's a Bridgewater man taking names. Reverend Sir, Mr. Tuckett, Mr. White, call on every Christian soul to join the fight and to stand up as a nation against this wicked violation. Though it might be bad for trade, you know it's right. Oh, brother. Oh, brother. Oh, brother, though it might be time for day to know it's right. Annie Pauline and Alexander Hood stand with soldiers of justice have stood, and bring the first petition to plead for abolition. First the tide must turn before the flood. Oh, brother. Oh, brother. Oh, brother. First the tide must turn before the flood. day. Almost every fortune made has been made upon the train, and we need to get our compensation paid. Oh, brother. Oh, brother. For the merchant compensation must be made. Oh, brother. Oh, brother. Oh, brother. For the merchant compensation must be made.
The trading of slaves was finally made illegal in British ships in 1807, but slavery in British colonies wasn't fully outlawed completely until 1833. Then began a winding down process whereby they became indentured apprentices in a system known as compensated emancipation. In order to alleviate the hardship endured by the multimillionaires in their grand English estates and colonial mansions, the former slaves were expected to work 45 hours a week with no pay for up to a further 6 years before becoming free. Understandably, the slave owners were not happy. The trade had enabled them to amass vast wealth outside of their sprawling estates and personal fortunes at home. The solution arrived at by the government of the time, which included at least 100 MPs with interest in the trade, was financial compensation for the slave owners. The Slavery Abolition Act allowed for 20 million or 16 billion pounds in today's money to be paid for 45,000 compensation claims by the owners of slave property. No compensation was paid to the enslaved. The loan needed to fund this act was only fully repaid in 2015, which means, in effect, all British taxpayers, including the Caribbean descendants of the enslaved, up to that date, have contributed to the payments to the super-rich for the loss of their slave kingdoms. The National Trust was founded in 1895, and in 2020 it published its first report of historic places in its care with links to colonialism and slavery. The report identified 93 of its 500 properties and 80 compensation claims made by individuals connected with property never actually owned but left in trust to the National Trust. No compensation was paid to the enslaved. John Gladstone, the father of the then Prime Minister William Gladstone, received the highest award, totaling about £80 million in today's money, in compensation for 2,500 men, women and children the Gladstone family regarded as property. William Gladstone's maiden speech in Parliament, not surprisingly, was in defence of slavery. No compensation was paid to the enslaved. The total number transported by British boats during the legitimate trading years 1672 to 1807 was estimated to be around 3 million, almost 4 million. Some reports placed it much higher. Faced with these huge sums, illustrious names and properties, all this hideous criminality masquerading as greatness, and the fact that after 200 years, so much of this information is only just being examined and acknowledged, it's hard not to feel a sense of betrayal in that the sense and the realization that the British Empire building would have been impossible without slavery that brought me, Reg, to this project. With empire's new definitions developed to state its colonial superiority. Whiteness was good, Christian superiority was superior and free, and blackness meant heathen, inferior, unequal, and enslavable. On the 18th of June 1807, 6 weeks after the act of abolishing the slave trade was passed in Parliament on the 1st of May, General Rochambeau, a French officer on parole from Wincanton in Somerset, came to Morton Hampstead in Devon with Pierre Coupon, his black servant. 15 months later, a marriage was announced in Treleaven's diary, October the 17th, 1808. It said, "The marriage of Pierre Coupon to Susanna Parker, a Morton Hampstead girl, in 1808 was a great occasion for the town. The bells rang merrily all day from the novelty of this wedding being the first Negro ever married in Morton, and a great number assembled in the churchyard and paraded down the street with them. Peter the Black, as he was known, was the last recorded returning to France with his master, although his family, including several children, are present in local registers for years, and Susanna and her daughter are buried in St Andrew's Churchyard in Morton Hampstead." This final song of the cycle tells the story of one African in Devonshire.
Stranger in a strange land. I'm a stranger in a strange land. Far from my family and far from my friends. I'm a stranger in a strange land. They sent me to a western town. They sent me to a western town. Got a pretty little suit, got a side drum and a flute. They sent me to a western town. In England, no brothers are free. In England, no sisters are free. To go just where they please and be who they want to be. In England, no brothers are free. If I'm a free brother, let me fly. If I'm a free brother, let me fly. They tell me good souls fly to the good Lord when they die. If I'm a free brother, let me fly. Quit the army to work on the land. Quit the army to work on the land. Didn't take too long till I made myself some friends. Quit the army to work on the land. I fell in love with a girl from this town. With a girl from this little Dartmoor town. All the country folk around say get wed and settle down. Fell in love with a girl from this town.
Suntao Siso on the chorus. Let's hear it for Suntao. Cohen, Braithwaite Kilcoyne on the concertina. And the creator of the show, Reg Muir.
guess I'll be buried in this town. I guess I'll be buried in this town. We're the same color skin when we're lying underground. I guess I'll be buried in this town. I'm a stranger in a strange land. I'm a stranger in a strange land. Far from my family and far from my friends. I'm a stranger in a strange land. I'm a stranger in a strange land. I'm a stranger in a strange land. Thank you. Steve Knightley.
How fantastic was that? Brilliant. Do you think we can get them back to do another one? What do you think? Steve, can you bring them back?
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I was asked to do this about 2 weeks ago, to come and do the narration, and it was such a pleasure and a privilege. I think it's an extraordinary body of work that this man's created, Reg Muirs, yeah. And once again, for Sutan, Cora, and Cohen, and myself.
Thank you. Thank you very much. We're going to be selling CDs. And Santu also has CDs with him as well, so we will be wherever the Roots Record CD stall is, and if not, then you'll go to the shop tomorrow. You promise? Okay, we'll finish up with a song which isn't part of the cycle, but it has a great chorus and some fabulous singing. Thank you so much. Thank you for sticking with us. It feels really, really great. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much. And I believe this has been filmed, and at some point fairly soon, I believe this is going to be streamed. So look out for it, and you might even see yourself. Is that a good thing?
Also, we want to thank Katie Whitehouse for coordinating and organising.
Yes, Katie
a round of
Whitehouse.
applause, please.
And all the sound guys and everything, fantastic job. A big hand for them too. And lights. And of course, Shrewsbury Festival for inviting us back again. Wonderful. Have a great festival. We'll finish up with this song. This is my lockdown song. Back in March 2020, I thought we got a couple of weeks off. I'll write a song. Who knew? So this is it. It's called Shine On, and it's kind of got a two-part chorus. So we're relying on you to join in on this, and your part is this. Shine on, that. Shine on, lift the roof. Shine on, that's it.
Shine on.
When all the world is on the phone, the only voice is on the horn. The TV and the radio just scream. And the city lords are making laws to keep us all behind closed doors. Slowly real life turns into a dream. And it isn't yours and it isn't mine, waiting for the sun to shine and glow. Shine on like a pearl inside a shell. Shine on like a lily in a well. Shine on when the city lights are gone. Shine on. When the whole world's sick with the same disease, nations fall down on their knees. Time is running out to find a cure. That's when you hear the earth breathe out, nature's forces throttling down, flow down in the rivers strong and pure. And the ocean beats the shore in time, overhead the sun still shines and glows. Shine on like the song of Italy. Shine on like a lighthouse on the sea. Shine on when the city lights are gone. Shine on. So help the fragile and the weak, the lonely too afraid to speak. Help the ones who don't know what to do. Be responsible and kind. Use your strength, use your mind, use your light to guide them safely through. And leave the angels to their rounds. See, they have their masks and gowns. When at last a cure is found, we'll know